Welcome everyone back to Spoiler Warning, featuring myself, Tom Colohue. This is your bi-weekly wrestling news show that goes into all of the ins and outs and all of the little details you can't necessarily find anywhere else when it comes to wrestling and the world of wrestling news. We have quite a range of headlines today, including our main story, which is covered in the headline and in fact the thumbnail. Steve Austin has indeed been approached by the WWE on a number of occasions and rejected them. That includes as regards CM Punk, rumours now abounding that a match is coming when it very much is not. We're going to be talking Okada Kazuchika, who is apparently, according to Sports Illustrated, going to be wrapping up with New Japan soon. We're going to talk who's interested and who's more likely to make that deal. We're going to talk Jade Cargill and the pressure that she's currently under for her debut. We're going to talk the use of CM Punk and what is forcing the WWE's hand to use him in certain ways on different brands. We're going to talk the schedule of Roman Reigns and how it will be affecting Randy Orton. We're going to talk The Rock, and we're going to talk about Seth's current position on the card, and to put it bluntly, how he's doing as he's told, not necessarily being happy about it. So plenty of news there. Hopefully you can find something in there which will tell you that you're at the right place and give you a reason to tune in. We will be going into detail. First, I'll just catch up with a little bit of the chat. Say hi to everyone. Thank you very much everyone for joining me. We already have 33 people here who've been live 2 minutes. That's a pretty good start. So I want to say a huge thanks to everyone there. Hello to Sean. Hello to Bailey. Hello Chris. Hello Brad. Hello Joe. Hello Steve. Says, what does CM Punk hope to gain here in WWE? Last time I heard he did some heinous things backstage and got driven out of the business. He was indeed driven away. I wouldn't necessarily say out of the business. He drove himself out of the business. But when it comes to what he wants to achieve, everything seems to indicate he wants his name to be essentially mended. He wants to mend fences and he wants to renew his reputation. Michael says, hi Tom. Welcome, Michael. Thank you, Chris. Leon says, hi Tom, hope you're doing well. Doing pretty well, thank you, Leon. King Adder says, hey Tom, do you think Roman versus CM Punk is a money feud with the Paul Heyman factor? Anything involving Roman Reigns is a money feud. CM Punk is nowhere near Roman Reigns' level. Joe's excited for news on The Rock. Daniela's here, says, good evening Tom, good evening Daniela. So we are starting, as usual, with our top story. Be sure to hit like, 3 more guesses to 20. We are starting with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Since the arrival of CM Punk back to the WWE, we've been hearing a lot about the potential of Stone Cold Steve Austin versus CM Punk happening at WrestleMania. If you were watching the Survivor Series watch party, as CM Punk made his debut, I laid out exactly what the WWE were planning to do with him, and funnily enough, we're getting it confirmed by a lot of other wrestling journalists now. Seth Rollins is in the future for CM Punk at WrestleMania, potentially for the Night 1 main event for the World Heavyweight Championship. Even Seth Rollins is actually starting to push this one, so when it comes to Stone Cold Steve Austin, 1, there is no room on the card. In addition to that, the WWE have actually approached Steve Austin for a number of WrestleMania matches in the past, particularly after his match with Kevin Owens convinced the WWE that he'd be much more likely to wrestle in future. In reality, Kevin Owens and Stone Cold Steve Austin was something of a goodbye from Stone Cold Steve Austin, who just wanted to prove that he could still go and still deliver. After seeing the match, he was confident that he went out on his own terms and essentially said goodbye. The WWE contacted him a number of times since to basically check and double check if there is any interest in a return. To my knowledge, there is no interest whatsoever in a return from Stone Cold Steve Austin. Last year there was talk of Austin versus Roman Reigns. They were looking at double duty for Roman Reigns. This is also why The Rock claims that he was a lock last year to face Roman. He was once again contacted, but no match was offered, no match was formalised, and no match was booked. If you forgive the usual terminology, no match was a lock for either. Steve Austin has turned down the WWE on a number of occasions now, and it seems unlikely at this point that he has any interest in returning. The WWE, to my knowledge, have not yet contacted him about a match with CM Punk, but I find it likely that they will, and he will say no. Ori, welcome. Good to see you. Spiderboss says, hello Tom, why WWE is delaying Jade Cargill's in-ring debut? That is my next report, please stick around for it. Dan says, evening, which is still the best pun you can possibly get. Nice to see you, and good to see so much content coming out of your YouTube recently. I don't know if it's just Twitter serving me more of your content now. I've interacted with it a little bit more, but I am seeing a lot more of your name on my feed. Rosar says, man, it's got to be honest, Austin versus Punk is not that interesting. They're both past their prime. King Azza says, Tom, I don't want Austin versus Punk match. It will be like Goldberg versus Taker. I don't believe that for 1 second. Undertaker and Goldberg were not in a good place when that match happened, whereas Steve Austin and CM Punk definitely are, at least for a little while. Hello, Parrish. Nice to see you. The dude says, evening, Tom and chat. The Austin versus KO match was great. They should leave it at that. And in many ways, Steve Austin wants to. And Chris Gannon says, hey, welcome, Chris Gannon. Nice to see you. For those not aware, if you're a non-subscriber, if you're lurking, you can still chat. The chat is open and you can still ask questions. That will give you an opportunity to basically decide and test me a little bit as to whether or not you want to subscribe. So subscribe if you haven't already. Daniela says, Tom, what's your thoughts on the Creed brothers' quick rise of the tag division and being number one contenders for their tag titles? Being number one contenders doesn't necessarily make you a, how do we describe it? Doesn't necessarily mean you've moved up the card particularly quickly in the WWE at the moment. It's difficult to say that when it comes to number one contenders, they're actually earning their way up the ranks. Pretty Deadly got there pretty quickly and then fell off pretty quickly as well. So I do think the Creed brothers are doing good work, but they're not necessarily being used as a main focus at the moment. Spider-Boss says, do you see Rhea Ripley getting involved in the Men's Royal Rumble next year? So every single men's match that has involved anyone from Judgment Day, Spider-Boss, you've asked if Rhea Ripley's going to get involved. So far, she is not. Joey says, hey, Tom, is it true Okada's contract is up in January? I do believe it is. January, typically after Wrestle Kingdom, there is always a big refresh of contracts for New Japan. More on that shortly. Marcel says, hi, Tom and chat. How are you all doing? Well, thank you, Marcel. Chris Gannon says, I can imagine Austin was happy with the Owens match, would rather leave his career on a high. There is a reason Kevin Owens was chosen. There is a reason that the match was a little slower paced. And there's a reason that he managed to stun Vince McMahon afterwards. It was nostalgia. Steve Austin is not that interested in wrestling anymore. Kevin says, for me, the best use for Stone Cold should be referred to the match between CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. One says, hey Tom, I know this is repetitive, but it's surprising Mercedes Money hasn't fully rejected AEW's offer, knowing the reports are leaning towards her returning to WWE. To be clear, one, the reports are not leaning towards her returning to WWE. The reports, most of which are just now coming from Dave Meltzer, is just a confirmation that she's not yet signed the deal and things seem to be slowing down. Regulars of Spoiler Warning will already know that, of course, and I'm very proud of being able to report things like that before you see it come out from a Dave Meltzer and the like, but the reports that I've seen do not indicate a return to WWE. Joey says, is Stone Cold not happy with the money WWE offered, or does he not want to wrestle again? To my knowledge, money is no real interest for Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's simply not interested in wrestling again. Welcome, Wiggly. Nice to see you, mate. King Azza says, Tom, do you see CM Punk being a heel in his latest run? At some point, yes. At this point, no. Rizal says, what do you think about WWE running through big title matches for Seth on TV, like Sammy versus Seth and Jay versus Seth? I think it very much suggests that he's not going to be the champion that much longer. Eric says, good evening, Tom Colohue. How are you doing? Doing very well, thank you, Eric, and I hope you are as well. Chris says, actually, yeah, that last Vince stunner is a perfect way for Austin to go out. And Vince too. Yeah, I would agree for both of those, and in fact for both of those individuals as well. They gave us a lot of good times. And I definitely don't ever want to see Vince McMahon in a ring again. Leon says, Punk versus Austin would have been great 15 years ago. Now, not so much. To be fair, 15 years ago, CM Punk was still very much working his way up the card. Perry says, tag team action is highlighted again on Raw with 3 matches. Triple H is in fact trying to focus on the tag division once again, including the women's tag division, as I mentioned previously. Spider-Boss says, I remembered what you said about Randy Orton once Randy joined SmackDown last Friday. Is this as regards Roman versus Randy? Eric says, Chelsea Green and Piper Niven 42 days away from breaking the Kabuki Warriors Championship reign record. We do need to get them back on TV. Triple H is doing that this week. Joey says, do you think WWE will try to make a big money offer to Okada? More on that shortly. Chris says, is there much truth in Danielson sacked Punk? No, none whatsoever. Bryan Danielson does not have the power to sack people in AEW. Anyone who has told you that Danielson sacked Punk is completely wrong and is actively lying to you. King Azza says, when are we expecting to see Roman next? More on that shortly. Pete says, evening, chat and Lord. Tom of Colohue, good to see you, mate. Hope all are okay. Doing well, thank you. Spider-Boss says, yes, Roman versus Randy. Indeed, we did cover that on Wednesday for our PLE Wednesday show. Dog Nye, welcome, mate. Says, it's crazy how big a signing CM Punk is for WWE. It eclipses Cody and Bray returns for me. There's a pay-per-view excitement going into each Raw. That is something that they're banking on, especially when you consider he's not been announced for Raw today. Daniel says, yo, welcome, Daniel. Ori says, why does WWE seem to be ready to move the title off Seth already? More on that shortly. Mark says, I'm watching from the beginning. Hope you had a good week and looking forward to this show. Good to hear, man, and good to see you. Chris says, Tony Khan literally publicly said that firing Punk was his decision. Yes, he very much did. And Spider-Boss says, what a couple of days. Steve Carrier from Ringside News got arrested for battery last week. Everything I need to know about Steve Carrier of Ringside News comes from one particular clip. Steve Carrier was reporting on a stalker trying to essentially break into the Performance Center, encountering wrestlers and being told while live streaming to go away. If you go onto the live stream feed, which Steve Carrier recorded for exclusive content, you will notice someone with the name of Steve Carrier encouraging said stalker to break in, thus encouraging said stalker to engage in illegal behaviour. Now, I don't know if that was the exact same Steve Carrier, but they're called Steve Carrier, and certainly I feel that Steve Carrier of Ringside News would surely benefit from having that exclusive of someone actually literally breaking in. Clearly not really caring about anything else. Salisbury says, did you find R-Truth funny? Not really, not personally, but you know, other people certainly do. Wiggly says, talking about big signings and returns for me with Sting making his WWE debut, the run didn't go to plan, but the significance at the moment can't be lost. Chris says, Punk in WWE reminds me of John Lydon selling butter. Chris says, see an article calling Zero News a scam. We try and track these things here. I will defer to the chat as to whether or not they think Zero News is a scam and why they think so. Dylan says, hi Tom, it was my birthday on Saturday. I'm now 20 years old. Happy birthday for Saturday, Dylan. Good to see you, mate. Daniela says, what do you think of Dragon Lee so far on the main roster? He is good for a quality match and is good to keep people watching. Noob is here, says, hello Tom. How are you doing? Doing well, Noob. Nice to see you. Spider-Boss says, pretty deadly or funny. They do comedy well on SmackDown. They do indeed. It's a much more relaxed show, I feel. One says, Punk versus Stone Cold would have been good back in 2012 when Punk had more buzz and more people were watching. King Azza says, I think WWE have booked themselves in a corner with Randy versus Roman because I'd rather see LA Knight taking another loss, in my opinion. You are one of very few. Perry says, do you think CM Punk changes plans for the Rumble and the road to WrestleMania? More on that shortly. Alex says, I think Okada is AEW bound. Thank you, Alex, for bringing that news into the Discord as well. Michael says, I gave up on Zero News after Clash of the Castle 2022. Zero News, of course, did report that Drew McIntyre would win the championship. Pete says, sad news here, we've erected the Christmas tree, bar humbug. Daniela says, in your opinion, who's been the better general manager, Nick Aldis or Adam Pearce or Shawn Michaels? Nick Aldis so far because they literally changed the game for him. Just for him. And Martin says, hi mate, little bit of lurking tonight, feel awful, been ill all day but listening in. Hope you start to feel better, mate. Nice to see you regardless, hope we can find a way to cheer you up. Daniela says, do you have a rough idea to when the 2024 draft will be after WrestleMania? Spider-Boss says, how long until we see the Judgment Day interrupt CM Punk on Raw? More on that shortly. And Jordan Darlow says, good evening, Tom. Good evening, Jordan. We currently have 68 people watching, only the 30 likes. If you can thumbs up, please do consider thumbsing up. It will be a big help in the growth of the channel. We are currently at a new record number when it comes to the world of subscribers. WTF Wrestling continues to get decent views, which is, of course, really helping that. And we did launch PLE Wednesdays, which got another 4 subscribers itself. We're on 5,432 subscribers. 3 more gets us to 35 if you can make that happen. Our next piece of news is as regards Kazuchika Okada, or Okada Kazuchika as he is in his native country. He is indeed going to be wrapping up his current contract right after Wrestle Kingdom this year. This is one of the reasons he is not necessarily involved in championship chasing. Of course, the actual championship, the International Wrestling Grand Prix, the IWGP Championship, is currently held by Sonada of Just 5 Guys. He is one of Just 5 Guys. He is the champ, then 4 other guys. That's the faction, and it's amazing. Just throwing that out there. As regards Okada, his interest in coming to America to wrestle for a promotion here has been significantly harmed by his brief time in Impact Wrestling. He was not happy, New Japan was not happy, and it seriously damaged the relationship. Now, while he's not interested in going there, he's heard plenty of good things from AEW, including seeing the work of Jay White, Kota Ibushi, Kenny Omega, and now, of course, Will Ospreay as well. There is a lot of interest in becoming more global and taking a big payday to finish off his career in AEW. WWE interested in him and are planning to go hell for leather to try and get that signing. What I will say though, while he would add good depth to the roster's already pretty deep. And honestly, when it comes to Okada, I don't necessarily think he's looking to be the top guy outside of New Japan. I do think he's looking for more of a payday. To my knowledge, Okada is interested in AEW, WWE are interested in Okada. That is a very clear difference from where I'm sitting. KJ says, what's up, Tom? What's up, KJ? One says, hey, Tom, would you be invested in it if an NFL team played at Wembley Stadium? I would not. I've tried to watch NFL. It's not for me. Or he says, I'd love to see Gunter versus Dragunov again. Those two are fire. And to see a match similar to the one in NXT where Dragunov won just highlighted how amazing Brit Rest is and how good a classic match can be. Their particular contributions continue to be an absolutely necessary part of any wrestling fan's arsenal. Daniela says, Pierce was fuming when Orton signed with SmackDown. Aldis was ecstatic behind him. The way Randy chucked Raw's contract away was funny. KJ says, Meltzer report... So that Meltzer report about Mercedes and AEW slowing down, and of one you reported first. It was indeed. And I said to you, because I know you bring these to me on Discord, and I appreciate that, because sometimes I don't really follow as close as I should. When it comes to Mercedes and the particular report about that one, how to describe it? I'm not here to chase people. I'm not here to dedicate my life saying, I said this first, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't mean that much to me. Welcome, Eki. Thank you very kindly for subscribing on the YouTube side. You'll get a notification every time we go live for spoiler warning live shows, or in fact our recorded shows, WTF Wrestling and PLE Wednesdays. So I'm not one to chase people and say, I reported it. I believe in a free press. Once I say it, it's out there. Do your thing. That's all I really care about. I am not interested in my own self-gratification. That doesn't mean anything to me. What I'm interested in is getting the news out there so that people can be more informed and make better informed decisions as to what they want to commit to. That's all. That's very much it. Eric says, what's the next episode of WTF Wrestling? The next episode of WTF Wrestling is one that a lot of people have been waiting for. It's about Roman Reigns, his schedule and his lack of availability to the WWE. Does he give enough for what he takes? LF says, hi Tom, with CM Punk's return, do you see WWE changing any potential plans for Roman vs Cody at WrestleMania? More on that shortly. King Arthur says, hey Tom, what's your favourite CM Punk feud? I wasn't really watching heavily at the time for CM Punk, so I can't really say. I think the Jeff Hardy one certainly caught people off guard and it worked, but I don't know. Him versus The Rock, probably. Chris says, Jay Uso dedicating tonight's title clash to Umaga's legacy via Ringside News. Okay, if he's personally dedicating it, you wouldn't need to quote Ringside News. You'd be quoting him. Alex says, why is Punk not on Raw tonight? Is he not on a full-time schedule? More on that shortly. Daniela says, do you reckon Carmelo Hayes was the one who attacked Trick Williams, or is it Lexis King? Couldn't tell you. I don't follow NXT often enough to speculate. Pete says, I see Gunter has said the hardest chopper he has found was Pentagon. That was surprising. If you watch Pentagon Jr. wrestle, it won't be for long. Daniela says, smash the like button if you haven't already. Big up Tom and chat. Thank you, Daniela. We do currently have 36 likes and 74 viewers. 4 more likes gets us to 40. Can we make it? Eki suggests that the Royal Rumble, Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch versus CM Punk and AJ Lee. Do you think it could happen? I do not. Not at this year's Royal Rumble anyway. Then says, do you think TNA will sign any of the WWE released wrestlers? Yes. Spider-Boss says, who do you see taking the title from EO? Still very much Bayley. Gervin says, if AEW get Mercedes money, that's going to be big momentum for AEW. I feel it is. Spider-Bell says, my favourite CM Punk feuds are Punk vs Cena and Punk vs Jeff Hardy. And Wiggly says, Tom, who do you suspect the master attackers on MJF are? Said it before, we'll say it again, I believe it's Jack Perry, and I do believe it'll wind up CM Punk. So Vic says, hello Tom, hope everything is fine. I wanted to know why WWE are interested in New Japan or Stardom talents like Okada and Julia. Also, who else can they be interested in? They're interested in whoever is considered to be a great wrestler. Kazuchika Okada is one of the best wrestlers the world has ever seen. So that's why they're interested. It really is that simple. Wiggly, we don't know MJF's contract situation. Nobody does. King Azar says, do you see Cody or CM Punk winning the Royal Rumble? King Azar, I do suggest you check out PLE Wednesdays, where this week I did post a video with my match card and predictions for the Royal Rumble. Blair says, do you think an NWO angle could work today? Yes, because it's the Judgment Day. The Judgment Day are an NWO angle. Wiggly says, Tom, if you could sum up what you think of CM Punk in one word, flight. And Chris says, where does Punk's return leave Priest's push? More on that shortly. Hello, Callie. Nice to see you, mate. So next up, Jade Cargill. Jade Cargill is under pressure by the WWE fan base, formerly known as the WWE Universe, to get into the ring sooner rather than later, but the WWE are not interested in listening. The WWE are taking their time to ensure that Jade Cargill has the experience that she requires and is working with a number of people at the Performance Center, including Charlotte Flair and a number of people from NXT, to get her up to the required level for her debut. If she's ready, she will be debuting in the Royal Rumble. If not, they'll likely wait until later. My belief is that it's going to be the Royal Rumble. But fans who are chasing, trying to say that it's a problem that she's not wrestling, clearly don't understand how wrestling works. Clearly don't understand how to build storylines, and clearly don't understand how actual physical pain works. They need to get Jade Cargill up to speed on the WWE style, otherwise people are going to get hurt. Fans need to calm down on this one. Michael says, once Sting retires, what do you think Ric Flair does? Wrestles for another 20 years. Blair says, greatest WWE tag team of all time. He'd be hard-pressed to not say the Usos. Counterfeit, you're right, maybe in a little while. Says Tom, hello, I have a question. If WWE were to host a pay-per-view in Africa, in which I think they should, I can see Bianca Belair getting a big pop. Why? As far as I'm aware, she's American. Not sure what you're saying there, mate. Zane says the problem was the promo wasn't CM Punk. Problem with half of it was probably written for him, and they took the safe route. That is not the case. The promo was written by CM Punk. Perry says Cargill is being done properly. She's being groomed, but also prepped in the way you want a long-term investment to be prepped. That is true. One says, hey Tom, do you believe Ronda Rousey is interested in signing of AEW a red herring, or does she mean it? I believe she openly said that she's not interested in signing with AEW. AEW are interested in her, not the other way around. Dan says, yeah, WWE doing the right thing with Jade. I don't think anyone that knows what they're talking about would say otherwise, and that I wholeheartedly agree with. One of the reasons I take great pride in stating that this is the most well-informed chat in wrestling is because we're able to calm down every now and then, and I know that people in this chat are not posting constantly on Twitter and complaining and whining. I really have a lot of respect for the way WWE are using Jade Cargill. They got a lot of attention early on, good networking, good marketing. Now they're making sure that when she does hit the ground, she has everything she needs to succeed. I'm happy to see you say that, Chris. I'm a fan of Eve Wrestling myself. I went to an Eve show the day before All In at Wembley, and I've got to say, even though I know there was some pretty big shows happening elsewhere, I do think Eve Wrestling actually was better on the basis of being smaller, being closer, being a little more intimate, and honestly just making me laugh, just making me genuinely have a great time. Like, I do believe that. Partly also because at Wembley, you're like a mile away from the screen, so swings and roundabouts. Counterfeit says, before Ronda left, they should have done her versus Bianca. She did not want to do that, so they couldn't. Chris says, good evening, Tom. Good evening, Chris. King Azza says, hey Tom, do you see Gunter holding the IC Championship past 1,000 days? I hope not, because if everyone's holding championships past 1,000 days, what's the point in championship matches? Perry says, everyone talks about Mercedes coming back to WWE. Do you think Mickie James or Deonna Purrazzo return? I think it's possible. I do know that Triple H is interested in bringing Deonna back. When it comes to Mickie James, I just don't think she's interested. Bailey says, I don't ever want to see another Ric Flair match. He's one bad match short of finishing his remaining years in a wheelchair or worse. I agree. Doesn't mean he's going to do that, but I agree. Dad says, big up Tom, when do you think the cash-in will happen? I maintain WrestleMania is the most likely time, as I've been saying for a little while. Blair says, who would be a good underdog story in the WWE? That would be an actual underdog, so someone who's losing quite a lot of matches. Sami Zayn was nearly there. He hasn't really lost a lot of matches recently, though. So when it comes to an actual underdog, I know some people will say LA Knight. He's not an underdog. He's getting pushed pretty hard. Karrion Kross is an underdog, but he's an underdog who's booked as an absolute dominating badass. You know who'd be a great underdog? Xavier Woods. Travis, I don't know where you've read that or where you think I've said that, but I have at no point said that CM Punk is a devil in AEW. At no point have I said that. Nor do I believe it. Zane says, WWE giving me what I want. Jade Cargill not letting her wrestle. I don't think she's a good wrestler. Well, Zane, that may be your opinion and you're entitled to it. I would imagine, literally, as you say, give me what I want, you would support her then going to the Performance Centre. Thank you, Chris, for letting me know. We are going to have a couple of ads that come through. I'm trying to find a nice balance of maybe like an ad an hour, but even one that you can just, scroll through. That you can skip, Chris says, I'd be really surprised if Okada left New Japan, but you seem better informed than I am. I would be very surprised as well, to be honest. Like I say, I do know that he's interested in AEW because that will allow him to continue working with New Japan, but there is a lot of availability in a New Japan schedule. So we'll see how it goes. Alex says, I've seen on Twitter today a lot of fans want Jey Uso to beat Seth tonight. I don't see that one happening. Wiggly says, I don't want to see Ric Flair at all, which is not unfair. Spider-Boss says, WWE didn't wait so much for Ronda's in-ring debut in 2018, and now WWE wait for Jade. Yes, because they're two very different people. Also says, Bayley's an underdog, she lost a lot in SmackDown. Yes, but she's also a multiple-time former women's champion, including a reign that lasted about a year. So, right now, she's certainly on a down, but she's not an underdog. Jennifer Williams calls my report bullshit and says, I want Jade Cargill now. Jennifer, you sound like a 2-year-old. Michael says, sounds like AEW has already sold about 34,000 tickets for All In, which is certainly pretty good. I don't necessarily think they're going to break their record, but it's still a good signing. One says, were you a fan of Kofi Kingston's Jamaican gimmick? No, because why? I've already read that one. Joey says, was CM Punk the one pitching the match with Stone Cold, or was it a Triple H idea? Neither. Chris says, just got you to 40 likes. Thank you very kindly, Chris. Very much appreciate it. We do have 76 viewers, 40 likes. Can you get us higher? Let me know if you can by hitting the like button. Eon says, what's next for Becky Lynch tonight on Raw? She said, there's a couple of fights on the horizon. If anybody is declaring for the Royal Rumble match tonight, I'd expect it to be the man. They do now have to essentially encourage you to think that she's not going to win it because she's too big a name and they want to create intrigue. I personally would have her wrestling people such as a Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax in the build-up to the Royal Rumble to just cause some distraction. Joey says, do you think WWE would offer Okada a deal to stay in Japan, or would he have to work full-time in WWE? It would be the latter. KJ says, the ads on the YouTube side are skippable. Cool. King Arthur says, hey Tom, what was more shocking, Roman retaining at 39 or Brock retaining against Roman at 34? So a lot of you won't have been following me at this time. I reported that Brock was going to beat Roman months ahead of it happening at WrestleMania. Bailey says, here's an underdog which would be interesting, Chad Gable. That's a good shout. I would enjoy that. Daniela gives a hello and a goodbye to our troll. Spider-Boss says, could we consider Liv Morgan an underdog? At this point, yes. KJ says they can't break the All-In record as based off the current seating chart. They're having a bigger stage this time. They are indeed. Has a lot to do with Taylor Swift, apparently. Chris says, I don't think it's physically possible to break the Wembley record with this year's setup. Parrish says, I also think Stone Cold can help someone young and not Punk. Would rather see Punk main event Mania first. What about Dom Mysterio versus Stone Cold? I'd prefer that, certainly. Wiggly says, I need to say this. When Tony Khan promised Sting a surprise, I genuinely thought it was going to be a special belt or an award. Instead, they drag out Ric Flair. If you need to say it, go for it. Chris says Bayley held the SmackDown Women's Championship for 379 years, which it is indeed. Welcome, Chris Leclerc. Joey says, is it true that Randy and Alexa will have time added onto their contracts since they missed a lot of this year? It is something that the WWE typically do. I cannot confirm at this point whether it's going to happen. Wiggly says things are better with Ric Flair. things that are better than Ric Flair, I'll start a two-fake. I'm not going to keep reading these, mate, if you just keep going on to it. But by all means, you make your jokes, and the rest of the people on Twitch can enjoy it. Chris says, YouTube Premium Music is a really good package. YouTube without ads is amazing. And to be clear, I still get payment if someone with YouTube Premium is watching. I genuinely do. Blair says, what about Michael Cole as the underdog? Hell no. Chris says, who do you think will be main eventing night 1 and night 2 of WrestleMania? It will be, in my eyes, CM Punk versus Seth Rollins night 1, Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes night 2. I mentioned this during the Survivor Series watch party. Spider-Boss says, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Nia Jax and Shayna hold the record for the longest reign with the women's tag team titles. I believe that's true. I'm just not sure. Next up, CM Punk. So there's been a lot of talk about what CM Punk is going to be doing and why he's not going to be appearing week in, week out. Now, when it comes to CM Punk, he will be appearing, but he will be spread out across all of the different sections. He will be making appearances on Raw, appearances on SmackDown, and likely appearances on NXT. The use of the contracts to try and sign Randy Orton is also a play that seems likely for CM Punk. Nick Aldis is likely to pounce on SmackDown this week. What I will say is that there's a reason for it. A simple reason for it. You see, up until about 2 weeks ago, there were no creative plans involving CM Punk, and in order to keep the CM Punk news a secret, Triple H could not exactly go to the creative team and say, start writing creative for CM Punk. What he instead did was absolutely nothing. So now that CM Punk has arrived, the creative team need time to essentially come in and make some changes, to create storylines for CM Punk and to work out how to get to where we're going, which is CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. It's why we're seeing Seth Rollins used in another way right now, particularly against Jey Uso on tonight's Raw. So they need time to bed in and create storylines for CM Punk. As such, he will not be appearing week in, week out on every show, but he will be appearing across the different brands as often as he can. Perry says, I've got premium now, so I'm happy it helps you, Tom. Appreciate that. Travis says, maybe he said it wrong or I misunderstood, but someone asked Tom, who do you suspect the masked attackers on MJF are? Your response was, I said it before, I'll say it again. I believe it's Jack Perry. I do believe it'll wind up being CM... Oh, right. I didn't say it'll wind up being CM Punk. I said it'll wind up CM Punk. That may be because I'm British and you may not be, so maybe the phrase wind up might not be so popular where you are. I essentially mean that it will annoy CM Punk seeing Jack Perry back and in many ways rewarded on AEW TV, because if he is the devil, he's been there the whole time throughout his suspension. That's my personal belief on that. I appreciate you clarifying. I appreciate that. Spider-Boss says, anyone but Cody at WrestleMania versus Roman. Do you remember when it was anyone but Roman? Roger says, Ring of Honor reportedly struggling to shift tickets for Final Battle 2023, reported by Wrestling Inc. Thank you for sourcing, Roger. Nice to see you. Chris says, for anyone who's wondering, CM Punk is not expected at WWE Raw tonight via WrestleOps. WrestleOps are not a source to my knowledge. Are they reporting that, or are they just reporting it from someone else? Got you. So Michael also thought I was saying it would end up being CM Punk. So Travis, I appreciate you even more for double checking. You're very welcome, mate. Very welcome. Kevin says, that's good. Don't want to overexpose CM Punk too much. Gotcha. Brad clarifies as regards to women's tag team championships. Kabuki Warriors for a single reign was longer. Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler were over 2 reigns. Thank you for clarifying there, Brad. Nice to see you as well. Joey says, do you know if Kevin Owens' injury is legit or kayfabe? He has a legit hand injury, but it's not believed to be one that will be long term. I do believe, and I've said it before, I'm worried that Kevin Owens won't get a match at WrestleMania. Chris, I have serious questions about that one then, because if WrestleOps are trying to say that they have sources now, then where the hell did they come from? They have no track record of it. King Azza says, do you see Solo turning on Roman if he loses at WrestleMania 40 to Cody? That's completely impossible to answer, because it involves me assuming and then guessing based on an assumption. Joey says they're going to have to change the US title tournament with KO injured. No. There's plenty of options that he has, including wrestling in a cast, or in fact, and you like this one, losing. Aled, thank you, says it was PWInsider that said Punk wasn't at Raw tonight. That really raises a serious question with WrestleOps for me if they haven't mentioned the source, but Aled has just found the source. Next piece of news. The build towards Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton is starting without Roman Reigns. Now, Roman Reigns will be back at least leading into the new year and is believed to be likely to be popping up at least in the build to the actual New Year specials and the Christmas specials this month. However, the build for the actual match has already started. Randy Orton will be on SmackDown week in and week out. He'll have to wait until Roman arrives. That said, long term, I don't feel that this is a bad thing. Building to a Roman Reigns match doesn't really require Roman Reigns, as has been proven a number of times. When it comes to Roman versus Orton, I'm excited for the match. The build-up is more about Randy Orton returning, and of course, as I've mentioned previously, more good stuff for Solo Sikoa, who, as I've already mentioned, having beaten John Cena, there is good stuff to come for Solo Sikoa. Alyssa says, how long Cody Rhodes, Shinsuke Nakamura feud going until Elimination Chamber? How long feud going on? I'd imagine Royal Rumble, there will be something about it. Chris says, WrestleOps never mentioned the author. Aled says, just to clarify, WrestleOps did say it was from PWInsider. Appreciate you, Aled. That's exactly what I'm looking for from everyone in this channel. Fact-checking, ensuring that the sourcing is right, and ensuring that the information coming in here is spot on. Very much appreciate you, Aled. I think you're doing very good work on your podcast right now as well. Blair says, I feel like we don't have enough run-ins. It's just talking on the mic to build heat. What's the greatest WWE of all time? Or worst? I think the greatest and worst WWE is in fact WWE. Chris says, I think KO finds a way to win the tournament, regardless of if he's injured or not. I would lean that way myself as well. Perry says, Legacy versus Bloodline. Let that sink in. I'm old. We all are, mate. We all are. Spider-Boss says, what is next for Rhea Ripley's title reign? More defences. Becky Lynch is right there. Joey says, do you think Solo is a dark horse to win the Rumble? I've been saying it for a while, mate. Saying it for a while. Thomas says, hi Tom, who do you see Randy wrestling at Mania? It's a good question. I am definitely leaning towards Solo now. I think Solo versus Roman makes a lot of sense, particularly given that Cody versus Roman seems all set. So essentially, Randy could do Cody a pretty big favour. 23, talking about Kazuchika Okada, pop back to about 15 minutes in. I've discussed it at length there. Roger says, a fan hopped the guardrail at WWE Live event last night in Newark in an attempt to get Grayson Waller. Security immediately stopped. The fan reports from WrestleOps X account. One, I appreciate your sourcing. What I will say is while WrestleOps is the source for that one, they have just taken a video from someone. So here's the thing. I need everyone to be aware of what accounts we're looking at. So we're sourcing WrestleOps who take information from other people. They're not confident enough to source their own information, but we're sourcing them. Sovik says, I want to know, are there any plans for DIY? Yes, they are wrestling tonight. As regards long term, not really. Triple H is just sort of happy to have them. Joey says, do you see Finn and Priest carrying the tag titles into Mania or do they drop them before? Not sure. I think they drop them at Mania and that leads to the cash-in. Blair says, who is going into the WWE Hall of Fame? To my knowledge at this point in time, nobody has been contacted. Alex says, Roman's back on next week's SmackDown. I can't wait. Ram loves CM Punk. Cool. Kevin says, I'm still waiting for Armando Estrada to return and manage Solo. King Azza says, I'd rather see Randy versus Cody at WrestleMania 40, having Randy eliminate Cody and having Randy be a heel. Some people certainly would, but then what happens for Roman? Spiral says, Bayley's storyline is getting interesting. And 23 says, is Britt Baker looking to leave AEW? Not necessarily. No, just because someone's unhappy doesn't necessarily mean that they're wanting to leave. Usually this time every year we get rumours on The Rock, and The Rock himself has tried to encourage that at least a little bit. Now all I really want to say on this, a little update on The Rock. I've said it before, I do have to repeat it, and you guys know that I have to repeat it. There is currently no plan for The Rock to wrestle again in the WWE. No plan at current for The Rock to wrestle again in the WWE. So over the next few weeks, you're likely to see reports from Wrestling Observer that The Rock will be coming back at the Royal Rumble, blah, blah, blah. The Rock is not currently planned for any wrestling match in the WWE. Usually by now we can see the reports. I find it interesting that this time around we haven't got any because I feel like they're finally starting to learn. Finally. Thomas, I've already gone into really, really in-depth detail as to who CM Punk is going to be wrestling. It's Seth Rollins. Said it a lot. Alyssa says CM Punk is back. Is Cody Rhodes not finished story? Do screw? See him screw again. I do not expect to see Cody Rhodes screw again because I've never seen him screw. And I'm okay with that. Alyssa says, what do you think is going to happen with the Hardys? Do you think they'll leave? I suspect if they're unhappy, they will return to TNA, who are interested in bringing them back. Spider-Boss says, my picks for WrestleMania 40, Roman versus Solo, Randy versus Cody. Bless says, Britt Baker would be awesome in WWE. Eddie says, any interest on Hunter in Okada with a scoop of today about him by Sports Illustrated? Although he does say Shorts Illustrated, which I do find hilarious. Eddie, if you pop back to 12, 13, 15 minutes into the video, you will see plenty of information about Kazuchika Okada. Spider-Boss says, when we could see Sheamus' return sooner rather than later. The sort of turn that happened when it comes to Butch and I've completely forgotten his name. You'll know who I mean. Rich Holland is a build towards the return of Sheamus, who will knock their heads together and get him back sorted. Justin, thank you for clarifying that. One says, according to Jeff Hardy himself in a podcast, is currently not happy with putting over talent and not being utilised. They don't hide it, they're just not happy. The final piece of news is as regards Seth Rollins. So for Seth Rollins, he is not believed to be happy with his current storylines and plans because he knows that all roads lead to CM Punk. That said, Seth Rollins is more than happy to do as he's told and work with CM Punk in a professional capacity, knowing that he'll be able to turn off his brain, let go on the microphone, and lay into everyone. Seth Rollins, as far as I'm aware, will be writing a lot of his own content for his promos. He's very excited to aim squarely for CM Punk's face. Not sure, Chris. I'm sure he does, but I do think that needs to be taken into consideration. Kevin says, if Damian Priest cashes in at WrestleMania 40 between Seth and CM Punk match, that's going to remain everybody Seth cashing WrestleMania 31. Perfect. Alice is not wrestling related, but the GTA trailer is out tomorrow. Joey says, if Butch goes back to Pete Dunne, do you see him having a match against Sheamus at Mania? Nope. I see him being on Sheamus' side. Parrish says, will you consider this? Cody loses the Rumble earlier in the night, then costs Orton the title in the main event, so the American Dream drives him to finish a story, not someone's legacy, leads to Orton and Cody at Mania, then Punk wins the Rumble and Punk versus Roman, where Heyman screws Roman over 2 out of 2. No mention of Seth Rollins there. I would consider it, and then I would immediately dismiss it. Smashy says, is CM Punk on Raw this week? He is not. There is plenty of news on CM Punk at about 30 minutes into the video if you'd like to rewind and check it. But when it comes to CM Punk, he's not believed to be at Raw tonight. He will be on SmackDown on Friday. King Azza says, who do you see being the final 4 in the Royal Rumble? I can see Cody, Solo, Randy and Gunter. I think that's a very good combination of people. Then he said, who's the best referee in wrestling in 2023? I don't really know their names, so I couldn't tell you. James says, the Hardy Boys aren't happy with how they're treated. Booked of AEW source, the Hardy Boys. And that's absolutely correct. It's good sourcing. Solid. Alyssa says, CM Punk versus Roman Reigns bigger than The Rock versus Roman Reigns. Better storyline, more story. I mean, there isn't. There is literally no storyline or story between CM Punk and Roman Reigns. Whereas The Rock and Roman Reigns, there's plenty because of the bloodline. So I have absolutely no idea what you're referring to there. We currently have 79 people watching and 46 likes. 4 more gets us to 50. Perry suggests Rollins versus Gunter for the World Heavyweight Championship, which as always I can very much get behind. I need to remind everyone of my schedule for the upcoming week. We will still have PLE Wednesday this Wednesday. We will not have spoiler warning and the SmackDown watch party on Friday. Okay, we will not have that. You can, of course, go to our sister channel OLE and see what they're up to. You should definitely check them out for the Raw watch party tonight. But when it comes to SmackDown, we will not be hosting one. I'm having a little break of the live content on Friday because I've got a weekend away to basically recover and do the last Christmas shopping before the, Christmas, basically. Jennifer, we're established you're 2 years old. Why are you even here? You're not allowed on the internet. Internet's for big boys. Spider-Boss says Seth's title reign after SummerSlam hasn't been good. Seth's got a few TV time and Judgment Day got more TV time than Seth. It is the year of the Judgment Day, let's not forget. And Chris says, as critical as I've been of Punk, I really hope he does have a better experience in WWE than he did in AEW. I'd be sad if his career ended with a bunch of blow-ups and exits. James says, do you think the Nick Aldis RKO is to turn him heel? No, I think that's Randy Orton. Okay, then while our sister channel was OLE for the watch parties, I'm guessing not anymore. Chris says Bayley versus Io Sky for the WWE Women's Championship at WrestleMania 40. I have indeed been suggesting so. And yes, Chris, you're absolutely right. Trolls are pretty funny and genuinely doing me a favour. Thank you, Noob, appreciate that. Sunday will still be WTF Wrestling. This one will be as regards Roman Reigns and his contract status and appearances. But for now, I'm going to wrap up and say a massive thank you to all of you for your continued time. I'll see you live again next Monday. Until then, I've been Tom Colohue. You have been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.